Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Story time again. Call of Cthulhu again, and surprisingly, a man named Hugh again. Quick recap. Hugh is a character I played in a Call of Cthulhu game run by my friend Mike Shields. He was part of a group who were trench fighters in World War I. Had encountered the supernatural while in Europe, and now back in America were continuing their fight against the forces of the outside. And in this fight, Hugh murdered a house full of cultists with a Ferris wheel, and then died by falling into a flaming pit occupied by a demigod while wearing a coat full of dynamite. Now, that's a character who's dead as hell. I've defined numerous stages of dead in the role-playing games that I have written. 2, maybe 3 or 4 unofficially, but there's dead. That's when you don't have any metabolic signs left. You've taken so much damage that you're just not working anymore, but if someone can get to you fast enough and apply enough medicine or healing magic or what have you, something that'll heal you up just a bit, you can go from dead to merely unconscious and then recover. Dead as hell is that state at which no medical technology, no reasonable healing magic, nothing is going to bring it back. There might not even be a recognizable corpse at that point in time. Dead as hell, it's an act of deity or something similarly potent, but for the most part, unless you're really going to inconvenience the rest of the party, that character's gone. And this is Call of Cthulhu, so yeah, blown up in a coat full of dynamite, falling on a demigod in a pit full of fire. Hugh is dead. This coincided with my having to leave the game for a little while. I had personal issues and wasn't going to be able to make those regular every other Saturday games. The game continued from there, however. Despite the fact my character had passed away, the rest of the characters made it through that particular puma-infested, snake-ridden, burning Ferris wheel tragedy and entered into a phase that is something that Mike does better than maybe any other game master I know: consequences. See, there is no official organization for fighting the forces of Cthulhu and Nyarlathotep and what have you. There might be one coming up in the history of the game world, but in the late 1930s, no. You're a criminal running around shooting people and claiming to blow up monsters, and that will get you put in jail. Party was captured, arrested, imprisoned. There was a trial. The trial lasted for weeks. Well, in gameplay, the trial lasted for weeks. It was not a simple situation. I got to follow along because Mike provided copious notes on what was going on as time progressed, and summaries and things that happened between games that the characters would become aware of. And this turned it wasn't just a role-playing, a procedural courtroom drama. Oh no. There were numerous different occult forces attempting to influence the trial. See, the forces of the mythos in Call of Cthulhu are not necessarily aligned. And what is bad for one group of cultists is not necessarily bad for every group of cultists. So, the party found that some of this political infighting between forces belonging to monsters from beyond the stars was using their trial as a political battleground. I almost wish I had been there. Kind of glad I wasn't. Hugh would not have done well in a courtroom situation. long and the short of it, the trial, the prosecuting attorney was gunning for the party, as well you can imagine. Massacre, flaming Ferris wheel, people shot across the United States, explosions and fires, and these people could somehow be traced to all of it, but he was in the pocket of some fairly powerful monsters. Party got in the pocket of a different set of monsters, effected temporary escapes from prison, and enacted some justice. As it turned out, this was almost exactly what was necessary for the forces that didn't want them to get into jail to get them out. So they got out, not unscathed, wounded, injured. And Sarge, you may remember Sarge, my friend Ross is playing Sarge, Hugh's old commanding officer, well, commanding NCO, had gotten himself a magic ring. Now, in Dungeons and Dragons, a magic ring is a fine thing to get. It can give you all kinds of bonuses. It'll let you breathe underwater, offer protection. That's great in Call of Cthulhu. Magic's never a good thing to get. Not ever. Oh, it seems nice at the moment. It seems like something that gives you a little benefit, lets you talk to things, it can give you answers, and you don't really want that kind of information. You don't want to talk to the things from beyond the stars, because when you talk to them, they talk back. And that starts a downward spiral that your character is not going to survive sane, or whole, or... In Call of Cthulhu, being damned is actually not the worst thing that can happen to you post-mortem. It's just the start of a long list of things that just keep getting inexplicably worse. Time passes for the characters after the trial, and Mike decides, hey, this has been fun, running this Call of Cthulhu game in the classic Call of Cthulhu system, but I kind of have a desire to run it in something different. And hey, Scott, do you think this could work in the victory system? And to which I replied, hell yes, this is working in the victory system. The victory system allows for a more cinematic level of play. So Call of Cthulhu holds you down to sub-realistic levels of running around and jumping and shooting things. You're not that good at any of this. One of the points of Call of Cthulhu is that your character isn't particularly competent or capable at just about anything. You've always got these huge margins of failure that you can always wander into. So that you will have the desire to get a hold of some unfair advantages, which will eventually lead to the character sliding down that slope. The victory system allows you to run around and jump and do action things, and it's kind of awesome. Its insanity system is not nearly as robust as the insanity system in Call of Cthulhu. But it has an insanity system, and I've been working on a project called Eldritch Victory that Mike had actually inspired me to do a lot of the work on. And so, with some of the pre-release notes for that, he had everyone convert their characters over to the victory system so that we could carry this thing on a few years after the trial. I was able to come back into the game at this point in time, which was awesome, because when Mike runs one of my systems, it's just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. He gets it, and he does it just right. Like, what character do you want to play? There's a whole stack of characters from the original game that there were like 15, 20 characters that we had to choose from at the beginning. I got handed Hugh, but there were all these other characters that had been in the background, being NPCs and stuff. They'd done stuff. Some of them had been involved in the trial, some of them hadn't. And was there any of them that I really wanted to do? And I started thinking about that very seriously, because they're going to have to integrate with the group, and some of the characters are kind of pre-integrated, and some of the characters weren't, and that was interesting, but not fun. And despite the fact that this game is going to be in the victory system, It was going to continue to be a Call of Cthulhu game. There was still going to be mythos and intrigue and all the different... This would give Mike a chance to really plumb the depths of mythos and find stuff to really get to us. And I didn't want to be on the outside of that process entirely. I wanted to make this really, really interesting and fun. So I took Mike aside and I said, I want to play Hugh. And he had that expected reaction of, but Hugh's dead. But he looked at me, and it wasn't a statement, it was a question, because Mike and I have had enough game time together to know, for him to know, I wasn't asking for something normal. I sat back and designed a character mostly based on a couple of sketches I'd done while I was bored in between because I couldn't get to the game. I presented to him a character sheet that had Hugh dressed in period clothing, but his right eye had been replaced with a rather bulky camera lens, and his right arm was rather obviously mechanical and perhaps, by the looks of it, diesel powered. The alias on the character sheet under his name, Hugh, was number 6. And Mike looked at the character sheet and said, okay, what happened to him? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. He remembers being blown up. I woke up like that. I don't know. I handed Mike a tool. I handed Mike a tool for enhancing his game, for making things more interesting. I could very easily have come up with something mythos-like in the background, but then I would have known about it, and I would have had a hard time playing off not knowing what this was, or Hugh being somehow inherently evil or bent or twisted by whatever happened. But no, I didn't want to play an evil Hugh. I wanted to play Hugh. I just wanted to play Hugh with a crap load of questions and no answers yet. Mike took it and ran with it. Ran with it like a cheetah holding scissors, man. Group gets back together. And suddenly there's Hugh. And Sarge, a few years later, having been dabbling in the bad magic, because of course he had, took a while to convince himself that was Hugh. Because he saw Hugh die. He was standing next to Hugh, and Hugh flung his coat full of dynamite and him into an explosion. But it was Hugh. The rest of the party took their own time, made their own decisions, but it was Hugh. It was as Hugh had ever been. And the most Hugh you could possibly get, that was Hugh. You know, the arm and the eye and some other stuff. I don't know it all, but you know, I'm working it out. I woke up, I think, in a hospital, I think. And someone, I don't know who, told me you guys was here, so here I am. A little suspension of disbelief, a little trusting in the spirit of the character, because the spirit of the character was absolutely there. And you had people with enough magical talent to be able to tell, hey, that really is Hugh. Don't know what happened to him. Maybe someone put him back. I don't know. It's Hugh. It's Hugh. Not the most ridiculous thing you would ever be expected to accept in a Call of Cthulhu game. And with everything they'd been through, they'd seen ghouls and monstrosities from beyond the stars, and they knew that magic worked, and they'd talk to gods. Gods, in as much as gods existed. Old ones. It was Hugh. There's another member of the party, Brian, played a girl who was possessed by a member of the great race of Yith. Time traveler. Jumping his mind into bodies in the far future to see, look around, explore, using that technology. And he played her so damn good. Because every so often he'd break out in native Yithian and just start talking in dolphin songs and shit. And it was a weird experience. It was a super weird experience to take these characters, most of whom we knew, a couple of which we didn't, some of whom were changed almost beyond recognition, but the spirit of the characters was there, and the spirit of the group was there, and we had really, really harsh adventures. Because we're playing victory system, and we've got risks, so we've got re-rolls, and we can give ourselves bonuses, and heal up a certain amount of damage, just being who we were. Mike could let go a little bit. There's a certain amount of restraint that you have to exercise when you are a game master running Call of Cthulhu in the classic system. And that is because no matter the level of the player character that has been generated, your book is packed to the gills with shit that will murder them in 2 turns. 1 turn to notice they're there, and another turn to make them go away. There are creatures in that book that are so far beyond humanity that you might as well not bring a PC to the fight. It's not a fight. You see it, you roll for sanity, you probably lose some even if you succeed, and then a foot or a pseudopod or something comes down on you and you're not even food because they don't care. The biology's not compatible. They just wanted you flat because you're quiet that way. You don't have a much better chance in the victory system, but you have a chance. You have at least the illusion that maybe I can make it out of this alive. I might lose some points of my will. I might take some damage. I could die, but maybe I can make it out. And Mike pushed that to the limit. Exploding buildings with us inside of them, running through fiery structures, being shot at by cultists with machine guns, and monsters coming out of nowhere, just diving on us. Horrific scientific experiments that would try and chase us through these things. Sometimes we had to blow up the building ourselves just to make sure that we sealed that thing off, or at least it got tired of trying to eat what was left in the building and would leave. The overarching story is we're following a cultist who's trying to bring around the end of the world, and he's got a really good chance at it. He's 2 steps ahead of us each and every step of the way, and the whole time we are chasing him, we are being harried by all the forces that we've pissed off in the past, and that is a lot of them. Some groups can follow us unerringly, and we don't figure out why for a while. Some groups just know where we are at, and it's a combination of things, as it turns out. I didn't know why I called this version of Hugh number 6, but it was a version of Hugh. We found other Hughs in mental hospitals or out doing grunt work other places that Hugh is suited for, not with the same memories, but those were Hugh. They looked like Hugh. There were a number of him. 6 was the upper number that we knew of, but that's not necessarily the limit that we discovered. Why were there Hughs? Because they're all the same Hugh. The mental pattern isn't the same in all of them. They share some memories, but not all of them. What the hell is going on? And then we discovered that one of the groups harrying us is the Migo, the fungi from Yuggoth. Alien beings occupying Pluto as a forward base, but looking to occupy the whole solar system eventually, and cross between shrimp, crabs, mushrooms, and the mold you find on top of your soup after a couple of weeks. And masters of high technology and bioengineering, and Hugh was... And it wasn't even a clone. He was a construct. He was an experiment. And they were mentally networked to some degree because that made the experiments easier. And when the Hugh that had flung himself into the explosion had exploded, something about the presence of eldritch energy and the violence of the death just shunted the entire personality over to one of the Hughs that had been left deliberately empty. It didn't have a mind in it, didn't have any experiences or any memories. They left the brain completely blank so they could operate on it and see exactly how much mechanical apparatus they could stuff into a body. They weren't nearly done. They'd gotten an eye, they'd gotten an arm, they'd gotten a few of the internals replaced. Hugh had some strange abilities that he had to discover over time because he didn't know. But he was number 6. And they could track me. They could track me unerringly. So whenever we got jumped by forces that were either the Mi-Go themselves or servants of the Mi-Go, that was because they knew where Hugh was all the time. I think it was the Yithian and the girl who was able to fully identify what was up because they had a fair degree of high technology themselves. Removed that functionality from Hugh, stopped the Mi-Go from being able to track him, but then they tried to destroy him. They had a kill switch, and we'd palled up with one of the other Hughs. He was, in the party because there was weird stuff going on. And hey, let's see what's going on here because this guy's me and there's weird stuff. So let's... And the best that the group could do to save me, the Hugh that they had grown to know, when the Mi-Go sent the kill order, was to divert it to the other Hugh. And he'd become a member of the party at that point in time. So that was traumatic. His head blew up. I got to see what it was like if my head had been targeted properly. Lost a friend. Gained a terror. This was part of the real trauma and glory of this game, is that people died. People that we'd saved in the previous game, people that we met in this game and were trying to protect, were targeted constantly. We had to break people out of asylums, and the asylums would wake up and be attacked while we were trying to get people out. I had a friggin' submachine gun built into my goddamn arm, and it was not enough help. We took damage constantly. We were always on the run. We couldn't catch a break. And this guy that we were chasing is always a step ahead of us. And yet he had access to some Mi-Go technology, which is how I managed to start tracking him. Got in touch with my stuff inside, and there's connections that you can make with stuff because they made connections with me. So I'm going to make a connection with him. Screw that guy. I'm going to know where he's at. In the meantime, this not being bad enough, Sarge has lost his goddamn mind and is talking to beings he should not be talking to. At one point, while Hugh is not far away, like within earshot, Sarge contacts and summons the Crawling Chaos, Nyarlathotep himself. One does not summon Nyarlathotep. If Nyarlathotep shows up, it's because he thinks it's funny, or there might be a possibility. He is the embodiment of chaos. He's the most human of all of the outer gods. He's the soul and messenger of the outer gods. And possibly a human who ascended to that position, but he's so far beyond humanity. The only connection he really has is that he finds humans kind of funny. And he'll do favors for people who he thinks are going to advance chaos. destruction. You know, the funny stuff. Ross has Sarge summon him. I'm not still exactly sure why, because Nyarlathotep shows up fully being expecting, oh, he's going to ask for a favor. He's going to ask for more magic. He's going to ask for forbidden knowledge. And Nyarlathotep's usually good with giving that away because it makes the chaos better. It makes things more unpredictable, more random, more fun. And Sarge summons Nyarlathotep and says, hey, look, I can summon you. I'm not going to analyze the situation over much, except to, even Hugh realized that someone had enacted an act of tremendous magic and contacted one of the forces one should never, ever, ever contact for a dick-waving contest. Just to show that he could do it. Just to display the size of his monstrous, monstrous brass balls. And Nyarlathotep pointed out that this was going to catch up with him at some point in time, and Sarge just goes, yeah, I'll see. Big balls. But Hugh didn't forget that incident. No. Hugh didn't forget much those days. I think they put something in his brain to help him remember. He got smarter as the game. Everyone else was putting advancement here and there into different skills and shoot better, jump faster. More magic in a couple of cases. And with Hugh, he just got smarter. And he was building up that brain tissue, being able to read, write, and maybe talk a little bit better, and be a little bit more Hugh than Hugh. Because sometimes it's about the smarts, right? Get involved in all this stuff. Yeah, I can run pretty good now, and I can hit things really, really hard with this big metal meat hook of mine, and see things really good, but ain't none of that stuff going to do me no good if I can't think about it right, Rafe's intelligence. My main expenditure of experience throughout the entire game. We tracked this cultist to South American digs, and we hunted him on Easter Island, and several points of interest across the United States. We fought zombies and zombified versions of friends of ours that he had found and altered. We had to kill a lot of evil things, and there's stuff chasing us through the damn sewers, and we've got Deep Ones and Migo and Dark Young of Shub-Niggurath, I think. Just we couldn't turn a damn corner without things going bad. But we found him. We found him just a little bit too late. He had managed to time everything just right for the stars to be in position. And that's never a good thing. Stars being in position in Call of Cthulhu is kind of like a dinner bell. The pre-ancient city of R'lyeh had risen above the waves. Cthulhu was about to wake up. Now, everyone has their I Met Cthulhu story from Call of Cthulhu or similar games. And, it's all plushy and fun when you talk about Cthulhu these days, but this was the goddamn end of the world, and it wasn't going to be fast, and it wasn't going to be pretty. No matter how many times you have heard someone, oh, I crit my sanity check and gave Cthulhu the finger, it's never like that. You might have that moment, but that's not because you're super strong or super willful. That's because you just lost that portion of your mind that understands how fucked you are. R'lyeh had risen above the waves. Deep Ones roamed its surface. The cultist had his cult, were having a celebratory ritual orgy in front of the doors of the temple from which Cthulhu would emerge shortly. Getting it on with one another and with deep ones and with any other forces of the intellects below the waves that were interested in hopping in. Utter depravity to usher in utter destruction. When those doors opened, it was over. And we fought. We went there, fought them, and had to do something. We didn't know what at that point in time. It was almost over. That was going to be the end of it. That you couldn't... Cthulhu came out, we were dead. Cthulhu came out, we were going to be the first hors d'oeuvres on the menu. We were going to be the first things whose souls and bodies were consumed by his uncaring, hungry malevolence. It wasn't even malevolence, it was just how he had planned to do things, inasmuch as we can understand any plans going on within the mind so alien and so vast. Psychics were already killing themselves across the earth because, well, his awakening emanations were driving them to the realization of what was about to happen, and they wanted to check out now. Because the astonishing degree of depravity, insanity, sheer... I can't even call it hell on earth, because hell on earth would have been such a step up from what was about to happen. Mike had made it very plain and very detailed what was about to happen to the whole damn world. And we were just trying to find something to do about it. Found some points on the island where they were trying to focus the magic through, and they were well defended, and they were armored, but maybe, just maybe, Sarge would be able to get enough magic together. He talked to some of the other greater beings that weren't necessarily misaligned, Sathagwa. He had Nyarlathotep kind of on speed dial, so he thought, but we all knew that if he called Nyarlathotep again, he wasn't showing up. He'd had his dick waved in his face once. He wasn't going to be into that. Hugh is anti-magic at this point in time. So using that optional rule in the victory system where if you've got cybernetics, you have no hope of ever acquiring psionics or magic. It's just incompatible. Kind of, shadow to shadow run there. So he cannot be involved in any of the rituals that they're trying to do under fire. Under attack from, a certain amount of people are trying to hold off the fishmen and a certain amount of people trying to get a ritual going. I could have been on the defensive line, but I had an idea. It was not a good idea, but my gaming career for the past decade or so has been built entirely on really, really bad ideas. Hugh ran for the temple. A grappling hook built into the arm, and it was very difficult moving across the surface of R'lyeh because the geometry didn't line up as some of the angles were indeed hungry. And if you didn't watch where you stepped, you just fall into an angle and get eaten. So Hugh took a good deal of the session to get over towards the temple. I was making a lot of noise while I was doing it too. Trying to draw as much attention, trying to draw as many fishmen as I could off of the group doing the ritual. And I got a good number of them following me. Big pile of a mob. They couldn't swing from rooftop to rooftop like I could, so I was a little bit ahead, but not much. I hit the temple, got into the middle of the orgy, and the raging, horrific horde of deep ones charged into this scene of depravity and turned it into a bloodbath. And suddenly what had been their celebratory ritual orgy turned into fountains of blood and limbs flying every place and viscera scattered across the ground. It was horrible. And the door opened. Door opened. Great Cthulhu pokes his head out. It's over. Or is it? With the last moment of sanity Hugh was probably ever going to experience, he shouted, "Hey, Nyarlathotep, what's this? I want to make a deal." Whole table goes quiet. That did the last thing anyone had expected to hear, most of all me. And, Mike took a moment to process that, because time slowed down. And the dark man himself showed up next to me. Tableau. Everything frozen in time, like one of those super slow motion videos, but just came to a stop bullet time. Organs and blood flying, Cthulhu's face peering out from the darkness of the temple, fishmen, and what was left of the cult just scattered everywhere. And Nyarlathotep says to Hugh, "What? What can you possibly offer me? What deal do you want?" And Hugh says, "That goes back in there, and I do whatever you want from now on." And there's a chuckle. There's a laugh. Like, what could you possibly do for me? What do you have to offer that makes it worth stopping all this beautiful chaos? And I looked the dark man right in his eyes, and I said, "How many people do you know who could have taken this thing and made it worse?" Nyarlathotep laughed because Mike laughed. And there was a nod. And time started up again. And Cthulhu stepped on Hugh. Just one foot. Boom! Squished. Dead. Gone. All over again. Just sploosh. And everyone on the island saw Cthulhu had stepped out and put every last bit they had into the ritual, and it didn't quite make it, but then it kind of did. Something pushed the ritual over the top. Party didn't quite have enough power to do it. They weren't quite able to draw enough power from the island to do it, but they managed to push the ritual over the top. And Cthulhu got sleepy. Slinked back a little bit. Door to the temple closed. And the island started to sink, so everyone had to run for a damn boat before they're all dragged under it. And party made it, but absolutely no one else did. And the fishmen dove back into the water, and what was left of the cult, which wasn't much, just kind of sank under the waves, drowning, screaming, gurgling their own blood in a couple of cases, and saved the world. Party goes off. During this whole man a mess, Sarge had reached for more power than he had, way more power than he had, and he ended up getting sucked through a dimensional rift and chatting with the god Sathagwa again, who promptly ate him. Gone. Done. Most of the party managed to make it out. In one way, shape, or form. Some of them were brutalized, maimed, insane, or on their way there, horribly hurt, but they made it out. Hugh, on the other hand, woke up in a very comfortable bed. Bereft of any cyberware, in possession of all of his memories, wearing a black turtleneck and a black suit. Got up out of the hotel room bed, opened the window, saw that he was in St. Petersburg, Russia. And that is where the game ended. There had been one copy left, apparently. Nyarlathotep had guided it, made things happen, because they'd be funny later on. I'd offer him a chance to keep the party going. Cthulhu could always come back next cycle, but in the meantime, which sets Hugh up to be a campaign villain at some point in the future, which, since I've been making him smarter, that's actually kind of terrifying. I like making things interesting. I like giving a game master enough hooks in the character that becomes a part of the campaign. Something the game master might not have planned on to begin with, but, you know, sometimes a GM needs help. Sometimes a GM needs a little, well, I'd like to get the party going over here, but I don't know how that's going to happen. Well, okay, give the GM a little, well, my characters occasionally can be influenced by things. Does that make any difference? And yes, it does. It gives the game master that little ability to draw things in and make story plots and extra plot points, introduce more story through the characters, like an author who has to fight to progress his story. I like it when players offer me really good hooks. Your character's an amnesiac? Oh, I'll take that. I'll take that. I'll just make up your background for you, and then when I need something out of the party, I'll introduce it in the form of a memory you've just had, or someone from your past who recognizes you. Thank you for following me through this second half of Hugh's adventures. I don't know if there will ever be any more. If there are, I'm sure I'll let you know. Future videos coming up, I'll probably be giving a couple of tips and tricks on how I like to run games and make things more or less difficult for people as is necessary. I almost killed an entire D&D party with a river rafting trip a couple of weeks ago. I'd kind of like to talk about that and the techniques involved. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. I like getting a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, that's fine. Give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If you have any questions or commentary, I'd like to know more details about Hugh, or maybe see the character sheet from the second half. I don't have the first half, unfortunately. Give me a comment. Let me know. I love getting comments. You'll love leaving me one. If you'd like to see these videos when they come out, subscribe. I love getting subscriptions. Subscriptions is one of those numbers I check all the time. If you subscribe, don't just hit the subscribe button, hit a little notification bell so you get the notification when these videos come out. And if you really dug the video, I invite you to hit me up on my Patreon page at www.patreon.com/ScottCorum and consider donating. Anything helps and lets me make more videos and hopefully a better quality as a new camera today. I'm actually really pleased with how it's turning out so far, but you know, once it's actually the video's actually up, I'll might revise that. But pretty good so far. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me, and I hope to see you again soon on the next Matters of DeCorum.